I'm an American sitting in Russia right now. I came here 8 days before the special military operation. And since then, I've been doing a show trying to let the world know that Russia is a normal place, let the world know the truth of Russia, let the world know as best I can about the conflict between Russia and Ukraine from a distance. But my guest today is a man who has been covering the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, not at a distance. I've brought you a lot of, shall we say, celebrity guests lately, but I still want to bring you guests that you might not know about. This guy is experienced in talking on the internet, but not so much in English, although he speaks English very well. And in this video, I want you to get to know him. I want to hear from him about his experience in the conflict zone, and I want to get his opinion about the conflict zone. Sir, do you have any intriguing statements you'd like to make before I play the musical montage?
Well, I'm not your common guest. I'm a very ordinary person. I'm a worker, and I dedicate my free time to human causes. And in this case, there is a big event going on, which is the special military operation, which doesn't resume geographically just to that place. So we'll talk more about it lately, and that's my goal, is to contribute to these big causes.
Very good. Welcome to Expat American. I am the Expat American. Let's find out what's going on in Russia and possibly Ukraine right now. Now. Guys, thanks again for joining us. So without further ado, sir, tell us, who are you?
My name is João Quaresma. I used to be a teacher. In the presentation, in your thumbnail, you have a teacher. I haven't been teaching now for some years, but I used to be a primary school teacher. That's my main education. But I'm an oil and gas industry worker. And that does not define me, I must say, because I have always been interested in history and geopolitics all throughout my free time, all throughout the free time I had in other experiences of my life. And right now I'm focusing on Russia. I'm focusing on the war between Russia and Ukraine, or I should say the war between NATO and Russia. And this is, I don't want to get too long of a story about myself, but this is essentially who I am, a worker who dedicates himself to other causes in its free time. I mean, it's like a hobby. It doesn't, I hope I don't, take the value away from the cause by calling it a hobby, because it's actually, I think it's very important what we do there.
Right. Well, we can hear from your voice you are not from Russia or Ukraine. So where are you from, and what got you interested in this part of the world?
Well, I am from the opposite corner of Europe from Russia. I am from the west coast of Portugal, and I was born in 1977, and I have lived in the Cold War era. I was 14 years old when the Soviet Union dissolved, and I was already following history at that time, even though I was just a kid. And I immediately realized what the imbalance that would create to the world, the fall of the Soviet Union. In my ingenuity, I thought in the first year that it could still be restored. I remember thinking about this. And later with Boris Yeltsin, with full power in full power of Russia, I realized that it was not going to be so. And as history developed, because I'm not going to bore you with a history lesson here, as history developed, and the hegemony of the United States increased, and we saw the result: wars throughout many countries of the world, destabilizing many countries, regime change everywhere. I mean, not respecting any sovereignty or human rights that they claim they do, and they always accuse other countries of doing when they want to overthrow them. And so I kept following this, and until the moment it started the turmoil in Ukraine. And I started following several channels on YouTube at that time because it was the best way to get information because nothing was censored yet. So I followed the militias, what the militias from Donbass was posting in 2014 and 15 until they're censored. They also posted on Facebook, and I followed heroes like Motorola. I don't know if any of you have heard of this man, or Givi was another. These were the first militia commanders, well-known commanders from the DPR. And I knew what the Ukrainian regime was all about because it was not a grassroots revolution. It was a revolution that was financed and completely manipulated according to the West's interests, both the European Union and the United States. I mean, I'm not going to bore you with this because if you're in this channel, I believe you know this story. And like other guest of you said the other day, if you don't know this and if you still think it was not like this, I don't know any other way to put it to you, because these are the facts. There was internal meddling in the internal affairs of Ukraine by the United States, and that led to where we are today. And I got to know, I jumped right into it. I got to know a man that surprised me, that moved from Texas to fight alongside the militia in the Donetsk People's Republic at that time. And it caught my attention because he was a communist. He was from Texas. I'm also a communist. And I admired that man's deed. And I followed the war through his eyes. I followed the first big two defeats of the Ukrainian army facing these militias from Lugansk and Donetsk. And ever since, I have been following the subject, and also not only the front lines or the military aspect of it, but also the political aspect of it. And so this motivated me to get out of couch and try to do something about it. You know, it's very difficult to just sit and watch the news, and when you watch the mainstream media, not all of it, and sometimes the mainstream media tells you some truth. You know, they have to mix some truth with the lies to make a perfect lie, you know.
Right.
But that's the effective way of doing it, right?
It's interesting.
Tell me.
Yeah,
please.
sorry. No, it's just interesting that you were born in 77, I was born in 74. We've come to a place where I think we're both in agreement on what's going on with this conflict, and we'll get into that in a minute. But you were raised with a worldview that the fall of the USSR was a bad thing. And I, of course, being raised in the US, was raised with the view that the fall of the USSR was a good thing. I am not sure about that now, obviously. I'm living in Russia. I'm learning lots of new things. But to be dead honest, you know, I wouldn't say I'm a communist, and you say that you are. You seem like a good guy, and I'm open-minded now. I don't know if I'll ever get to the point where I'll say I'm a communist, and maybe we'll have a discussion about that later on. Maybe you can enlighten me on something. I still think that, I don't want to offend people, I still think capitalism can be a very good thing, is a good thing, as long as it's not driving the ship, I would say. But yeah, so that's interesting. I just want to point that out, guys, that he's a communist, I'm not. And we're still going to be friendly here. So,
yeah,
which is very
absolutely. I mean, I only know one political, militants of political, let's call it political philosophy, that are not tolerant with anyone else. These people are called fascists.
Gotcha.
The only people we are not tolerant with, the communists, are the fascists. Exactly.
Very interesting.
We can talk with any other person from all specters of politics.
Right, right, right. Okay, cool. So then, what brought you to the point where you decided you would actually visit the conflict zone? And so walk us through that. You know, how did you decide? How did you go
Mm.
about it? And what
Well,
have you experienced of note?
oh, that can be a very long answer, but
Yes,
I'll
yes,
try.
yes.
I try to keep it short in order not to bore the audience. The thing is, I had this crazy thought on my mind when I saw Russell joining. Russell was already 54 years old when he joined the militia. He risked his life. Of course, I
Hmm.
immediately understood as I knew more about him, as I found
Hmm.
out more about him, that he didn't have any kids. That actually
Hmm.
weighs a lot in your life. If you don't have any direct family that depends on you, then you can be more, you can, well, literally risk your life easier. And at that time, my second son had just been born, but I still had that crazy idea of I'll leave this country and I'll go join that militia because that's the forefront of the fight against the empire. It's happening there. And if someone wants to do anything about it, they will do like Russell. For several reasons, I didn't do it. Maybe, well, I'm not going to say I was afraid, but I was definitely afraid of not ever seeing my kids again. I haven't been a father for that long. My daughter was 5 years old. My son was just born, and that was my biggest fear. But the years have passed, and you know that conflict went into a state of sleep. Well, there was always a conflict there. There was always death. There was always artillery exchanges, skirmishes going on. Since the second Minsk agreements, there was always fight over there that no one knew about. But the really hot conflict was kind of in a sleep state. So
Hmm.
I was following it, but I noticed that it was quiet, and my financial situation was really not good. I mean, I had been not finding. I wasn't able to find a job as a teacher because the IMF, it's called the Troika, the IMF and the European Union, uh, they came into Portugal. They gave financial aid to Portugal. And you know what the IMF does when they do financial aid to a country? So the country has closed a lot of schools at that time. They sacked thousands of teachers. And a lot of teachers like me were out of employment at that time. So I had to dedicate myself to study again and learn other trades in order to survive. So that really hampered my movements back then. Long story short, I did manage to overcome that and found a new profession and found a new means of sustenance, which finally allowed me to move. And when the special military operation started, this was such a huge avalanche of propaganda, such a huge pressure, such a huge pressure on myself because all my friends, all the people I knew, they knew my positions. And suddenly, Russia goes in Ukraine, and they're like pointing the finger directly at me. Do you see? How can you defend this? How can you uphold this? How can you, it was
Of course.
so huge, the offensive,
Yes.
that I started to doubt myself, and I thought to myself, I have to go and see this, and I have to arm myself with real arguments, because it doesn't matter what I say. I mean, it's 24/7 on the news, this kind of thing, and people won't believe any other story. So I started to talk to Russell again. I interviewed him a few times on my channel, and then when we were talking off the live stream, I told him, I mean, would you help me reach Donbass? And he said, sure, just come, you do this and that and that. And you just arrive here and you'll stay at my home. I'll pick you up from the station and whatnot. And so I went. I planned that trip alone. I traveled to Moscow. I caught train to Volgograd. I had to go to Mamayev Kurgan, pay respect to the fallen soldiers of the Battle of Stalingrad. And then I took the bus directly from Volgograd to Donetsk. And it was lucky the way I crossed that border because I was the only foreigner on that bus, which was packed. And
Wow.
at 5 o'clock in the morning, the bus crosses the border, And of course, you have to be stopped to be checked by the guards. And the guard gets in the bus with his AK. It was a young guy. You could see that he was tired because it was 5 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
And he asked everyone to hold their documents up. So he could just check them visually. You wouldn't have to grab them one by one. I mean, the bus was completely packed.
Right.
And I was sitting in the last row near to babushkas. And I hold my passport up, which the Portuguese passport has a very similar color from the outside. It's very similar to the Russian passport.
Yeah, like a brunette.
And so the guy just passed his eyes through that row, and I could see that he didn't even notice me. And the bus, he gave order for the bus to advance. No one had to go out of the bus to be questioned or anything. I mean, I haven't had the slightest idea how would that be processed. I mean, I only knew about that after, I only knew that you would be questioned and you would be interrogated if you would be found. I mean, if they had noticed me, for sure, all those people would be there waiting for hours for me to be processed there. I would have the hope I would get away with it, because then I would call Russell and him and his wife would talk for me. But if I didn't have any justification, they won't let you in Donbass if you don't have any real justification. If you're a foreigner, you just go there, and I'm here for sightseeing or whatnot. They won't let you. They will be suspicious of you. You will be thoroughly interrogated, and then you will be sent back if they're not satisfied with the answer. I mean, and that's a comprehensible security measure.
Right. So at this point, you're just now going out of curiosity because you decided you would not be a soldier because you have children, but you wanted to go and see it for yourself anyway. Is that right?
Yeah. In the meantime, you're born in 74. I was born in 77. I'm 48 years old. I don't know if the army has any use for me. Definitely not as an assault troop. I mean, stamina isn't what it used to be. Although I consider that I'm in shape, but still, But
I thought you said some of your friends were not in agreement with you. They were like, "See, look, when Russia started the SMO, Special Military Operation, so that means that." Portugal has different people with different political views, right? So
yes, but in Portugal, all the parties aligned with the narrative, pro-Zelensky narrative, except one.
Okay. So it's part of the Western.
It's part of the Western Bloc. Portugal is a NATO country, but except one party, which is the Portuguese Communist Party. Is an historical party. Is the oldest political party of Portugal, and they refused. They got out of the room when Zelensky came to speak. He was on tour speaking into every parliament, every national parliament of the European Union. And when he arrived to Portugal, he didn't even arrive to Portugal because Portugal is just it has no weight. So we didn't even bother to come here. He went on video. Live stream, video conference, but still, the MPs from the Portuguese Communist Party, they left the parliament room when he was speaking, and so everyone, of course, the Portuguese Communist Party suffered a huge blow due to this position, not condemning Russia and upholding a different narrative, which is the narrative of NATO encroachment on Russia's border, which is true. So they were the ones who had the courage to stand up for that.
And you decided to be a part of this party because of your father or because of your university studies that led you to believe in this?
I became a member of the Portuguese Communist Youth when I was 17, of my own volition, when I have decided to become politically active. And I did it like when you go to, I did it, the same process as when you go into a restaurant and you have a menu and you choose from the menu what you like more. So I decided to be politically active. Let's see which parties are working on our society and what are their ideas. So I go through one by one and I chose the Communist Party. I mean, they were the ones who had views that I understood that were more fair and that worked for a more just society. This is basically it. I mean, from the perspective of a youngster that I still was at that time. But when I grown up and start to know more about the world, I convinced myself more and more that they were the one right party with the right project for our country and for society in general, for the world society. Yeah, this is how I came to be a communist.
Okay, great, interesting.
Well,
yeah, I'm just curious because I'm not from Portugal, and I just want to help the Western audience understand the world that you come from.
Yeah, but I want to just say one more thing about that. Is that the Portuguese Communist Party has a peculiar history, which is they don't forget that Portugal was controlled by a dictatorship from 1929 until the day you were born, 1974, until the year you were born. And this dictatorship was overthrown. My parents were youngsters when this revolution occurred. I was born 3 years after, so I'm a son of that revolution. I am aware of all the freedoms that I could have because of that revolution. And the Portuguese Communist Party was the only party that existed pre-revolution. They were the ones who were clandestine, you know. They had to go undercover. They were persecuted by the political police. They were tortured. They were put in prison. And so they have a very brave history of fighting for freedom. You can tell me that, oh, but communism in this and that country, they ended up in dictatorships and whatnot. Look, I can argue about all that. But if you want to argue with me about the history and the role of the Communist Party in Portugal, it is probably the most pro-democratic party that you have in this country, that fought and gave its blood, the blood of its militants, for the birth of democracy in Portugal, which was only occurred in 1974, and later in 1976 when they had the first elections.
Okay, very good. All right, interesting. Sorry to go on that tangent. It's just something new and interesting for me, and I think for the audience as well. Okay, so you made it through on the bus, and then what happened?
And then I got to the next station 5:30 in the morning, more or less. And I called. The bus arrived like 1.5 hours earlier. I think because they were counting on that stop in the border that didn't occur. So I was supposed to arrive there about 7 in the morning. So I called Russell and I got him out of his bed. And he told me, "Oh, just give me some time to wake up, and I'll be there to pick you up." And while I was sitting on this, I have footage of all this. I have so much footage that I haven't published anyway. While I was sitting on the bus station in Donetsk, and I was watching the people, there was a lot of people there. I was surprised due to the hour, but it was a lot of people hanging in there, waiting, and bus coming in and out. And I heard the first blast. Still a little bit afar, but clearly a blast. And then another, and then another. And I looked at the people around me, and they didn't even blink. They didn't even stop their conversation, stop their cigarettes, or looked other way than the way they were looking at in that same moment. You know, they were completely not moved. Not a single reaction from them from those explosions. And that I was there for a few days there. I stayed there, and that was 24/7. I call it the music of Donetsk. You always hear explosions afar. Always. Sometimes explosions very near. I mean, a couple of times we had to run to the basement from the flat where Russell was living. And I witnessed with my own eyes the attack on civilian infrastructure in the center of Donetsk. When one night we had gone to Petrovsky and we had this toast with vodka, because every time you survive going to Petrovsky, you drink a shot of vodka. This was Russell's tradition there. And when we were sitting in the flat and we were planning our dinner with some friends, some war veterans, friends of Russell, we would go to this dinner in the outskirts of Donetsk. We heard very strong blasts, like 3 or 4, one after another. And then I just hear Lyudmila screaming, "Run to the basement now." And we went downstairs because it was on the last floor. We ran downstairs, and Lyudmila, when we got to the ground floor, Lyudmila opens the door to take a peek, and there was this old man walking his dog and making jokes, smiling, like nothing was going on. Mm-hmm. And then we learned later that they had attacked an employment center in the center of Donetsk. We just had passed that area like a couple of hours ago, driving through that area. And later on, the surroundings of this house were attacked again. By the way, these attacks were made by HIMARS. HIMARS missiles, multi rocket launcher, MLRS launchers. And later on, when we went to dinner, I was like asking to Russell, but what happens now? I mean, an attack has occurred. It was my first time in that kind of situation. And Russell answers to me, well, now we go and have dinner. Because like one general said once, a war is a war, but dinner has to be served on time. And we went to dinner. Right. It's like normal life, business as usual. Of course, the next day we went to check out the damage, and we saw it clearly. I mean, me and Russell inspected the area. Two huge holes on this building made from HIMARS. 20 people were killed instantly, and I don't know, a number of wounded. And there were no. My worry was like, let me check if, for instance, there might be a military target around here. I was very curious about this. I was there for the truth. So I went with Russell around the block, and we didn't see anything. So, if it was there, it was far away and they missed it. But I really doubt it, because the two rockets landed on the same building, killing a lot of people. Well, so I don't know what the target was, but the casualties were civilians. That's what I can tell you. And this really opened my eyes. This really gave me strength to argue with all these people that pointed the finger at me back in Portugal. And this is just the first example. I have many more.
Okay, well, that was my next question is, what can you say to get across the audience that is on the fence? People that are like, well, look, I haven't been there. I don't know who the bad guy is or who the good guy is. I really don't know. People that are watching right now. And then, of course, there are people that are on the Ukraine side, let's say, and they think that, Russia's wrong. What can you say to them? And then, of course, Russians that want to believe in Russia, or people that want to believe in Russia, let's say, but they're not sure. So you have that story. So is it stories that you witnessed that help reinforce your position? I assume you take Russia's side in this whole affair. Is that what it is, or is it also an intellectual exercise that you are already? I guess it was both, because you described that's why you came.
I think neutrality is can I say overpriced? It's overrated. Neutrality is overrated. You don't have necessarily to be neutral. You can really take a side. There's no problem about that. There is only problem with that. In my opinion, there is only a problem in you taking a side when you take it blindly. But when you take one side based on information, on facts that you have gathered, there's no problem with that. That's what courts do. When you go to court and you get in front of the judge, and you get witnesses and evidence and whatnot against you, and they prove that you're guilty, so that is, you are guilty. You're in the side of the guilty one, right? There is no other way to put it. And in this case, I wouldn't put it so black and white, because war is a war, and there will be innocent casualties on both sides. I'm pretty sure of this. In principle, I can say this is true. I've seen the level of destruction in many places in Donbass, and it's impossible that only military people died there. A lot of innocent people died. This is war. This is the reality of war. But the thing is, why did they die? Did they die because they were caught unaware in the midst of a battle between two armies? Or did they die because they were deliberately targeted by an army? This is a question that needs to be answered when you talk about civilian casualties. And in the case of Donetsk, I can assure you that between 2014 and 2022, I mean, they estimate about 20,000, around 20,000 civilian casualties just between let's call it the cold phase of this war. When it was just a few exchanges of artillery and a few skirmishes. So when this started, I mean, the bombings in Donetsk, they were daily. They were stationed, the Ukrainian troops were stationed in Avdiivka. They had artillery, and Marinka, they had artillery positions there, and they fired daily at Donetsk. You could see the marks. They fired artillery shells, they fired rockets, MLRS. And it was just, I mean, living in Donetsk, it's living on the edge completely. I mean, you never knew what was your fate that day, or you didn't have. You can't think of, oh, when I start the day, what will happen today? It can happen to you during the night, right? When you are in your sleep, an artillery shell just falls and you're done, or you're maimed forever. You lose a leg or an arm or whatever, or you lose your son, or you lose your wife, or you lose your brothers. I mean, the Donetsk population has plenty of people with such stories. But answering to your question, I'm sure there's a lot of grievances in the Ukrainian side as well. But we have to come outside of the war zone and look at the political scene to see who started this. I mean, this is
my connection is bad. I don't know if it's me or our guest. Did I lose you, or did you lose me?
No. I mean, I don't know if you lost me. You have been here. I can hear you well.
Okay,
I mean, you're a little bit pixelated.
Okay, interesting. I was talking to my friend Stan Fillin, and I said, my internet's bad when I do the live streams, and I guess maybe I should run a hard line to my computer. He's like, you haven't been running a hard line to your computer for 3 years doing streams?
I actually have a hard line into my computer.
So my wife ordered one. So for the next live stream, guys, I'll be much prettier and I'll have a hard line going. But for this guy, it's going to be cheap, unfortunately. Sorry.
Did you miss any of my of what I was saying, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I think it cut off in the middle of your story. You were the point that you made that I liked was that, like a court system, you have to collect the facts, and then they got to make a decision and decide who's guilty. And it's okay to make a decision. And I like that way of thinking about it, because a lot of us, we want to be nice, we want to have an open mind forever, but there comes a time in life where you got to make a decision. You got to decide, what something is. And so, and you're telling us a couple of stories to help illustrate why you think that Russia would be the better side to be for, would be the side that would be to be for. Let's say.
I had doubts when I was not expecting that Russia, because I'm so skeptical of the mainstream media, that when they were telling days in advance that Russia would invade Ukraine, that Russia would step into Ukraine, I was like, no, these people, they are just, putting fear on our heads as usual. Mm-hmm. And then I heard Putin's speech and I could figure it was for real. Mm-hmm. I took a little bit of time to process it as well. And so I really had to make this trip. I really had to see things and talk to people and see how do people feel on the people that live this, that feel this in their lives. I had to know their opinion and their stories as well. And like I said, I don't know if you heard this part, a lot of grievances I'm sure the Ukrainian side has as well. And I'm sure a lot of civilians on that side have their reasons. I mean, they are caught on the battlefield just as well. But in this regard, the Donetsk People's Republic citizens and the Lugansk People's Republic citizens, they are special. They have been under this for over 10 years. And these, it has been an army against civilians. This has no excuse. These have been war crimes committed against this population. This is undeniable, and so it's very hard not to take a side. I mean, and we can go into deeper discussions about the culture, about if it's the same people or if it's not the same people, if they are Russians or if they are Ukrainians. I mean, all of this is important to discuss too. And if you ask me, I'll just be brief. I'll just say, well, you cross the border, this so-called border, but you don't see a difference. I mean, the language is the same. The physiognomy of the people is the same. So I'll just stick to that for now.
No, I agree. All right. So what are a couple more notable experiences that you had being in the conflict zone, being on the front line? Most people will never be in a conflict zone, and they would like to know from you, someone who is not a soldier, what it's like. I mean, in the thumbnail, you're holding a weapon. So, we're all kind of curious, what you experienced. You mentioned how you had to go to dinner after a blast, deleted 20 people. What are some other things that happened to you?
Well, when I first went there, I was talking to Russell and saying, "Please, Russell, take me to your first positions. Take me to here. Take me there." And he was very reluctant to do it because he was afraid of the drones. The drones in 2023, they were not as big as they are now. Their role on the battlefield, they were not as intense, let's say, but still, they were already a menace. And so I didn't get to see really frontline positions. Aside from the Donetsk city itself, which was a frontline position because, Avdiivka was still in the Ukrainian control. And we saw the battle, we saw part of the battle of Avdiivka a few kilometers afar from it while we were in a park in the center of Donetsk. We could see the blasts and the smoke afar. And I have this video, it's on my channel where I'm talking to Russell, and Russell I remember his words. You see there, that's Avdiivka, bro. That's Russell in his own Texan accent.
Yes. Right.
And so I had to get back to see it. So I promised Russell, I didn't have many days left there. I went back to Moscow. I got a chance to interview a couple of people, to talk with a couple of people while I was in Moscow, people that had been in Donbass as well. For example, one of them, Maria Lelyanova, known as Masha, and the other guy was Mike Jones. They were working together at that time, and I met them both, and I had the chance to interview them. And they told me a lot of stories too, but I thought to myself, I have to come back. So I told Russell, I'll be back next year. In about 8 or 9 months, I'll be back. And then in April of the next year, that happens to Russell. So I was that was a big blow to me. I mean, Lyudmila just told me Russell has been missing now for 3 or 4 days. And this happened, and I just found this and the traces of him. His glasses, his smashed phone, his car. And I was really worried, and I made a bunch of videos on this because I was talking to his wife, to the widow, my dear Lyudmila, and she was updating me on it. I didn't say the full extent, and I don't say today the full extent of what I know because some things cannot be said because they are in this process of justice, and they have to obey this secrecy. Until they will be revealed. But if you want me, I can talk about that because I saw some comments here about Russell, and they were not that nice, and I can talk about that.
I do. Well, I guess 2 things, guys who are watching. We are going to get to your questions as soon as we get done talking about the things I want to talk about with him. The questions I want to ask. I'm going to be looking for your questions. And yes, I definitely want to now talk about Russell, but I'd like to preface it with this. I mean, we all know that Charlie Kirk, for example, just died, and he was a political leader. He was championing Christian values, and people who liked him around the world are sad now. But to comfort myself, I think of other historical figures that we like let's say William Wallace, who when we think of him, we think victorious, we think wonderful. Most of us do. Maybe the royal family doesn't, but and we know that he was deleted by his enemies, but we still think of the William Wallace story as a victorious story. And I think that Charlie Kirk, I hope that in time, we can remember Charlie the way he would want to be remembered. That it was his life was a victorious story, and it's the same, I think, with Russell Texas Bentley, who he is going to fill us in about Russell now and tell us who he is. And I want us to share and talk and learn about him in the way that he would want to be remembered. And I want, as time goes by, if history remembers him, I want history to remember him as a victorious person with a victorious life. So let's talk about Russell now. So tell us, who is Russell? We have an idea that he is the guy that first brought you to Russia and took you around. And I didn't know that. It sounds like that was your only time actually physically breathing the same air with him. Is that one trip? Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, we spoke a ton of times through the internet. We became friends online per se, and we because we had a bunch of live streams and we had a bunch of conversations without being live, because at some point, when events were unfolding in other scenarios, in other theaters of war, let's say, I would call Russell and we would discuss the subject. For example, like when the 7th of October between the Palestinians and Israel, when that started to unfold, I remember talking to Russell loads of times, and I read his book. I mean, if you can get hands on his book. I mean, if you contact Ludmila, I don't have the contact at hand here to give you, but I'm sure it can be put there, the description in post, and you can read his book. I strongly advise you to read Russell's book, because he gives you reality of course it's past time. I mean, the reality of war has changed due to technology, but his experience is very, very, very enlightening.
Okay, so tell us, who is he?
Okay, Russell Bentley is an former American citizen. He died as a Russian citizen. He was also a citizen of the DPR with passport, and he moved from the United States to the territory that was self-proclaimed the Donetsk People's Republic in 2014. And he went there, when Maidan occurred, and then there was this, the people in Donetsk and Lugansk republics didn't like the outcome. They took arms, and they made an uprising against this new Kiev installed government. And they formed militias, because the Kiev government has conducted an operation called anti-terrorism operation at that time against the citizens of these two oblasts of former Ukraine. And so Russell took up arms against them together with these militias. He sold everything he had on the United States in Texas. And he left his mother and his sister and his father, and he just flown to Russia to join the militia, just like that. And he joined a unit called Sudvremny, composed only of communists. It was an international unit. I mean, he talks about it. He fought alongside Koreans and Italians, and I mean many other.
He's probably about our age now doing this, right?
Yeah,
10 years ago, right?
Yeah. He would be this year. He would be. He turned 64, so.
Oh, he'd be even older than us then.
Yeah, he's older. He's older than us. Yeah.
Yeah, but he, at the time when this happened, 2014, he was even older than us now.
Yeah. He was 54. Like I said, he was 54 when he joined the militia. So, and I thought that was, and he was overweight. I remember with the guy, but he was already very proficient with guns. So that really helped him to get in the militia, and he got in shape. He got in shape like in a couple of months. When you saw a second video of him in a couple of months after he joining, you could see. I mean, I wish you guys could see these videos, because they were all deleted by YouTube. these videos of Russell. I mean, I'm sure you can, if you ask Lyudmila, or if you can go to his Telegram channel, you can still see a lot of this. There are a lot of videos about him. And you could see, I mean, he lost like half of his weight. And someone asked him about that, and I remember him answering, well, that's the Donbass diet. He explains in his book what is the Donbass diet. I won't delve into that detail. But it was really example for me, because he was fearless. I mean, if you imagine a guy sitting in the comfort of his home in Texas, I mean, he can be interested. You can participate in a lot of movements and civil rights movements or whatever you defend and uphold. But doing that step of just leaving everything behind because you cannot bear injustice, wherever it takes place across the planet. And he was really an anti-fascist guy. And he saw that fascists were taking root and having a strong role in the Ukrainian society at that time. And they were very motivated to go against the people of Donbass. And so he did what I think it was the right thing. He went there to fight them. Basically, this is who Russell Bentley is. He is really a hero. There is no other way to describe a hero. He didn't care about himself, about his well-being. He went there to fight in what he believed. And he went there to fight for other people, not just what he believed. His values were defending third parties, other people, families, civilians there that he didn't know. But he was well versed in history and in politics, and he understood the situation well. So he did the right thing. And I feel very honored till today of having met that guy, and having, like I said, this cup, guys, it was the cup that he used to drink coffee every morning. I shit you not when I tell you this.
Wow.
Because it was given to me, Lyudmila gave some gifts, personal things that belong to Russell, to people that she considered that were good friends of him. So this cup came to me. I thank Lyudmila for that. I think if you want to know anything else.
No, that's good. And he lived his life the way he thought was right and for a cause. And he ended up, giving his life for this cause, So
yeah, and
like
he
I
stayed.
said, I want to be a victorious memory of it. So I only had one interaction with Russell, and it definitely changed me. I had started this channel, and it was only a few weeks old, and I was invited to go to like a town hall type of thing in Moscow with supposedly some famous people there, and my wife was like, "Oh, I know that person. Let's go."
Joseph,
Yeah.
Joseph, let me interrupt. Can I interrupt you,
Please.
please? As I'm reading a comment here from
Yeah.
Deep Dive Hub, and he's like, fairy tale time. Can I address this guy for just 30 seconds?
Please.
Well, part of what you say, Deep Dive Hub, I don't want to, increase my voice here, but part of what you say is right. I mean, he was, what happened to him happened in the hands of these soldiers of the DPR, because fairy tales don't exist, and they don't exist anywhere. You can go to any country, and it can be your paradise, and you can still die over there, because every tree has a rotten apple. And this is what happened there. And this does not change what Russell did and what Russell fought for, and the example that Russell made for other people such as me, for example. And you should be, have more respect for people like Russell, or at least, try to live yourself in a way that he did, instead of just coming here and shunning with his comments. And you can see, we can notice your tone in these comments. And it's just, if people do that, you can see that you're not a great person. And I'm sorry. But
No worries.
Please,
I'm
keep
glad you
watching.
addressed it. So basically, the what people try and pick at are that he was deleted by people that were in service of the DPR. Is that right? Is that the point? I just want to make sure we understand.
Yes. It was. he went to. There was a bombing when he was taking care of some stuff in the center of Donetsk, and the bombing, the missile or the rocket landed in Petrovsky. He heard it, and it was his habit to go to these places to tend to the wounded, to see if anyone needed help. I mean, he had a very strong sense of community, and he was used to live like that in Donetsk. And I can tell you that Donetsk is a pretty safe city. I mean, if a Ukrainian rocket doesn't land on you, you're pretty safe otherwise. So what happened to him was really, really an exception. And I believe, I tell you my opinion, I have very inside information about this. And I will just tell you my opinion, because I can't just state the facts as I know them. He was a victim of a mistake. There are a lot of stories that they are told about this and how these people behaved and what they were up to. He was a victim of the mistake. He was caught in a very tense area, and him, despite being well known, he hasn't been in the military. I mean, last time he was in the military, it was in 2017. And you know, every year new servicemen come in. I mean, you don't expect, Donetsk is not a village. Donetsk is a city. I mean, people, you don't know everyone in Donetsk. So he was caught there as a suspicious element. And then amidst some talks, and maybe some rough talks that really happen more often than we wish to, but they do happen in these areas, because people are playing with their lives. You know, they can't just be, oh, please, can you tell me about this information, or where we were, or whatnot. No, sometimes things get rough, and accidents happening. And I think these people made mistakes while they were trying to do their duty. And then when they realized they made a mistake, it was already too late. Of course, what happens after is that, of course, they have families as well. They want to protect themselves. And the rest is in the justice secrecy, or I don't know if you can call it this way. But that doesn't describe at all the environment of the troops there, or the environment of Donetsk society, nothing like that. I think Russell had a tough luck. I mean, he was lucky until then, and his luck just ran out. But that doesn't, like I said previously, that doesn't erase the man who he was, the deeds he did, and also the man that fought alongside him that were from there as well. That I met many. I met his commander. I mean, really, really interesting people to know. They have really tough lives and really interesting stories to know.
Right. Okay, well, I'm glad you said that. So basically, the investigation is still ongoing, but that's your opinion. And,
I mean,
we'll know later.
He's talking about they butchered him to the point where there's nobody left. This is not true. You know, the word butchered, you suppose there's someone with a knife cutting some other person, a body in pieces or whatever. And this, I can tell you that this is not what happened. I will not tell you the details, like I said, I cannot say. But I assure you, Deep Dive Hub, you should make your research, or at least refrain from talking shit. Sorry. From talking nonsense. If you really don't know the facts, if you just read some propaganda. There is no way that you can know what happened, because it's all in the secrecy of justice.
Right. Yeah, well, okay, so I guess I'll just be real quick here. You know, my one encounter with him, I went to this meeting. My channel was a few weeks old, and I started the channel because the SMO started, and I wanted to make a difference, right? But I was like, well, I was thinking to myself, I'm not going to ever be political. I'm just going to be like Family Guy, life in the city, everything's fine. And I would just be like innocent and a little bit stupid. And everyone would watch my videos and they would learn that Russia's nice and peace would come, right? So I was very naive. And I went to this meeting and I came in and they had like this big like TV looking camera right in our face. And they made us all sit down at a table. They didn't make us, but you know, they were encouraging us to do so. And I was like a sheep. I went and sat down. And they rolled out this big TV camera, TV next to the big news camera. And Russell, who I didn't know, got on the screen. This guy who clearly had a Southern American accent, and he just was, you know how he was. He was just berating us and just like, telling the truth and talking about how difficult it was and how he was taking up arms and that we were sitting safely in our city and all this stuff. And he made me feel terrible, and I was convicted. But yeah, I know now he was right, and I was just upset, and I was like, what did I get myself into here? And I was like, dang. And I was sitting there just thinking, I shouldn't have started this channel. I shouldn't have done this. And I was going to walk out and hang it up. I was like, I'm done. And I was like, but I'm on camera here. If I don't say anything, I'm just going to be one of the guys at the meeting. And if it's ever a problem, I'll be responsible for whatever happened in this meeting. So I spoke up, and I was very open and a little bit emotional. And I was like, I don't know if I didn't ask for this, and I don't know if I'm going to do this. And then another blogger that was sitting a couple of people down from me, who I met that night, he leaned forward and he addressed me, and he said it. He explained to me what Russell was saying, but in a more polite way. And so I was like, okay, all right, okay, well, maybe, and I went home and thought about it, and it was a challenge, because I was trying to do it halfway, and basically I was challenged that either I'm going to do this and I'm going to try and make a difference, or I'm not. And as a Christian, I felt called that I had to take a chance, and I had to go, I had to move forward, and I had to be more open about what was going on. And I actually looked because I knew we were going to be talking about Russell, and there's like a 5-minute clip of that video that was saved. So if you guys want to see it, I look a lot younger, even though it was only 3 years ago. It's been a hard time, but it's on Spilinum's channel. That's a Russian channel, and if you go to popular videos and just scroll down till you get 81,000, it's like you'll see a picture of Stan Philin in a colorful shirt. He looks like he's happy and sitting at a conference table. So it's very interesting. But that was my experience with Russell. So my only experience in the moment, I did not like him. But as the weeks went by, I was like, okay, that guy's right and I'm wrong. And what I wanted to ask you next is, in preparing for this, my homework for this meeting with you, I saw one of your interviews of Russell, and it was a year ago or a year and a half ago, and you guys were talking about Crocus, which is a terrible attack that happened in Moscow. That you can look it up, guys, if you don't know what it is. And in that, you said that you're an atheist, but I heard that you recently got baptized. So I'm also fascinated to share this story with the audience. I want to know what's going on with you in regards to that, and then we'll get to the audience questions.
I'll be happy to talk about that as well. Yes, I have been an atheist all my life. I was raised. I can say that the main reason is that I was raised an atheist. Mm-hmm. Literally, I was. I live in a Catholic region of Europe. Predominant Catholic, mm-hmm. and it was very strong. The church, the Catholic Church, had a lot of influence during the dictatorship, so and it lasted after that one. It's a traditional thing. And but when it came the time to baptism, when you're a child, I mean, you're not aware of anything. You're just born and you're baptized, mm-hmm. when you are barely a newborn. But my father decided not to, because my father is an atheist, and he raised me as such. And he thought to himself, if he wants to become devout to something, he will choose himself when he is a grown-up man. Mm-hmm. But then, knowing the history of Portugal, being a communist, and the role of the church in the dictatorship, it made my position of atheism even stronger, mm-hmm. Not liking the role of the church in our society. In our society, the church contributed, especially in the dictatorship time, to more ignorance, to controlling the minds of people to a very old-fashioned and narrow way of thinking, against knowledge. I mean, a lot of things, a lot of aspects of it that I didn't like. So I remain in this position, and throughout my travels, and I asked these questions to Russell. I remember discussing this with him because Russell was an atheist too. He became an Orthodox Christian only after he was living in Donetsk. So, well, throughout my travels in Russia and former Ukraine, this is where I thought to myself that maybe the role of my education in my choices was really overlapping my real being and my real sense of being. And that in my inner self, I thought that it was time to assume. It was time to get out of the influence of the education and do my own choice. And I looked at all these examples of all these Orthodox people that I've met, including Lyudmila, for example, the widow of Russell Bentley, but not only. A lot of people that I met throughout these trips, and I had a chance to interview, others I just spoke normally, and I was really, really admired by the way they conducted their lives and the natural way they lived. Nothing like the Catholic Church, nothing like that. It's like you're talking with normal people, because I have this image of church people as strange people. You know, people that don't do the same things as common mortals do in their lives.
Yes.
You know, people that are there devoted and very focused on that and whatnot. But no, these people, these Orthodox people, they are normal people. They make jokes as you. They drink. They marry. You know, I have met priests and they're all married and they have kids. And this is a very natural thing for me. Yes. And then I thought, what are my values in life? And my values are the Christian values. That's what I uphold. I mean, I have been a communist, and like Russell said, being an Orthodox Christian and being a communist is not a contradiction. Mm-hmm. It is not. It is believing in the share of the fruits of the labor with your fellow community. Is believing in helping one another. Is believing and in connecting to others. I mean, it's all these values are very much in common with these two ideas. And then when I was in the KURSK monastery, and I got approached by this one priest, and he told me, "I will baptize you today." And I thought to myself, I had this flash. Very, very few moments, and I said, "Let's go." And everyone was like, surprised with me. "Let's go, let's do this." And I'm ready. And that was it. And then, of course, for some reason, and I wasn't really expecting that, some other people showed up from Channel 1, from Russia, from other news media from Russia. They asked me do you mind if we film this? And I said, "Go ahead. There is no problem." So that ended up being shown in Portuguese media a couple of weeks after, and I got famous here by that, you know. But that's other story. I don't think there is a contradiction, like I said to you, for being a communist and being an Orthodox Christian.
Oh, and yeah, I didn't even think that. But,
and I have no doubt of what I've done and what I uphold now. And of course, I keep my cross, the one that was given to me in that day, and I keep it under my shirt because Orthodox Christians do not show off.
Mm-hmm. So you went from not believing in God to believing in God, would you say?
Yes, this is true, because I think a higher entity does exist. When you don't believe, sometimes when I told myself many times that I wouldn't believe this, you really don't know what you're talking about. You really don't. I mean, when you say there is no, when you deny it, there is, I said this on conviction, but there is a bit of doubt in the back of your mind because you really don't know. And sometimes you feel it. And that's all I can say. I mean, this is also a very private matter.
Right.
And I'm sure that other Orthodox people, they can relate to my words. And you don't have to be versed, for example. You don't have to know the Bible by heart. You don't have to know all these words and all these prayers by heart.
Right.
You know, being an Orthodox Christian reveals itself in your action towards the next person. And for me, this is what is more important. And when they asked me, are you sure you're ready? This is a very serious commitment. This was asked to me several times. And he said, what? Will I change anything in my life? No. This is according to my conduct that I already have. So I have no problem with this. This is perfectly fine. And please don't be, don't be afraid for me, And that's it. Yeah, that's basically
No,
it.
that's good. That's good to hear. It's a well-told story. I think that, it's important that we are all things to all men, and that's what you're describing. You're describing Christians that you have found that are living normal lives. They're not being weirdos, And the
Yeah,
Bible
we're exactly
the Bible
weirdos.
says to be all things to all men,
Yeah.
So be relatable, You should be a Christian, but you should still act normally and not turn people off, So that's good. I'm glad there were that example for you, and I'm glad that you went through this experience. It's nice to hear, because we hear so many horrible stories nowadays, especially in this part of the world, and it's nice to see, some good stories that come from it, And I do think that, if you take the time to think deeply about it, if you're on the fence, if you're agnostic, I think it takes more faith to be an atheist, because what you're saying is all this just happened for no reason, just by freak accident on its own. Now, I'm from Florida, and I've been in canoes in the dark, swampy forest, going through the water, surrounded by, man-eating, ugly green and black, monsters in the water that are like ripping each other's legs off. And if all of the earth looked like that, you could maybe try to think there is no God, but all the earth does not look like that. A lot of the earth, things are functioning, people are able to eat and sleep and work and, flip the light switch on and off, and things function, cars work. I mean, we could go on, and it's just very hard. And, women are beautiful and men are strong. And it's hard to imagine that this just happened, that something didn't create it all, in my opinion, my humble opinion. So very, very interesting.
I agree.
Awesome. So was this your second trip that you got baptized?
No, it's the third trip.
Okay. So you've been here 3 times then. Okay.
I was in Russia. I visited Russia back in 2005, but I don't normally I discount that trip because I was still a student. I was doing Erasmus program. It's an exchange program from the European Union. So I was studying in Finland. I was still studying to be a teacher at that time, and I crossed the border from Finland to Russia for a few days just to see it. I was in a town called Sortavala, but this is the third time.
Right. So, guys, we're going to hang up in about 20 minutes. So, send me your questions now if you have any. But okay, cool. So 4 in total, but 3 to the conflict. All right. So, when are you coming again?
Well, I'm planning to go in November, late November, and early December. Until mid-December, and I'm still planning it because I keep having I have tons of material that I haven't released because I'm not able to. It has to go through a process. I do interviews that get translated into English, and then I have to sub them into Portuguese, and that's a very painful and long process. So I've been releasing them, but it's such a very slow pace that I lag behind. I have a lot of materials still to release. But at the same time, I feel that I cannot lose the pace, and I have to update myself on what goes on. So answering to your previous question, which I have not done, because I'm holding an AK in the thumbnail, and you asked me what was that about. So in my second trip to Donetsk, I had the chance to go to the polygon with some troops not far from the front lines in the Donetsk area. The polygon is where the troops, train their shooting abilities and whatnot, their military shooting abilities, throwing grenades and whatever. And then they asked me if I like to shoot the AK. And I said, I would be delighted to shoot the AK. At the time, I shot an AK-12. And I was like, I was just spending clip after clip. And the guy was turning to me and saying, sure us? So, da. Конечно. And I was just...
One more time. All right.
Sure us, which means again. And I say, of course, of course. And that was thrilling. And I thought to myself, I want to mingle more with the troops. I want to feel the front lines. I don't mind the risk. I mean, I don't control the risk. It's the people that take me to those places. They know better than me. So I just put myself in their hands. And hope for the best. But all I want is to contact those people there and see the devastation of the war, of course, to see the reality. I need to feel this to have a better understanding of all this reality. So this last trip, I went also to Donbass, but I wanted to go to the KURSK region, and I wanted to visit Sudzha. I didn't have the chance to get to Sudzha because the sky was too thick. That was the message we got. Being too many drones flying over it. It was still too hot over there to go there. But we were very near Kursk. I got the chance to sleep there with the unit. It's a medical unit that was stationed there. I will not say where, so the unit is not identified. And I can say that then we went shooting, but that was like, we were staying there. It was the 9th of May. Let's celebrate. So, and I asked if we could go shooting. So we just put a bunch of AKs in the back of a Lada, and we went somewhere, and we went to unload some clips. That's all we did for the 9th of May. It was mostly for the celebration, because I was divided between being in Moscow or being near the front lines with the troops. Of course, I decided for the last. For the last one, and I had decided for the best. I really met. It was really nice to be there, to sleep there, to meet these people, to talk. I mean, to just move freely inside of this unit. People were, watching me because I was obviously identified as a stranger there. But it was really fun, and I really felt welcomed. It was really honoring. I mean, these guys took care of me really the best way they could. They also warned me about the dangers. I mean, I remember I was going out with the commander during the day, and the commander was just a kid. He was just a little bit over 20-year-old, the commander of this company. And before we went out, he wanted to show me the surroundings. He went to his office, and he had a bunch of weapons there, and he just picked one and took. And then later I was asking him, what kind of weapon are you holding? Because it resembled an AK, but it had like a smooth bore, and it was different stuff on it that I noticed that were different from the regular AK. And so the guy just handed me the gun.
Wow.
And it was like, it's a kind of an AK, but it's a shotgun. It fires cartridge, spreading lead cartridge.
Okay.
Shells.
Okay, so you
like
were
shotgun
just
shells.
practicing. So that's
Yeah,
good.
so no, and I was
because
just,
as a journalist, you're not supposed to get involved.
Yeah,
right,
of course. I was not. I assure you, because if I had gotten involved, I would be in jail right now, because I would not be able to come back to Portugal.
Right.
All right. This is when I got back from there and I got on national TV. I know this, that I was inquired about by the authorities here,
Yeah, they
and
talked to you about that. Right.
and of course I have nothing to hide because I did not commit any crime. I mean, you
Right,
can you can hold weapons. It doesn't make you participant in the war, and nothing like that. So I defy anyone to prove that I've been fighting there, because it's not true. But I do like to shoot. I do like to shoot against targets, paper targets, wooden targets, or whatever. Not people. I'm not doing that. I mean, I was in the army in Portugal a long time ago, 28 years ago, and when I decided that I would not join the militia and I would fight the information war instead, so I'm not doing that. I'm not picking up guns to shoot other people, unless I have to defend myself, of course.
Right. Well, you're a brave man. I mean, it's intense to be there, and if we think about it, we know it in our mind, but you have to go there to understand it in your heart, just how intense it is. Earlier this year, my wife and I, with some other vloggers, we went as close as we could, and yeah, it was intense. Even what little we saw was intense. And if you guys are interested, I posted a clip of it yesterday. But yeah, I can't imagine what people are going through. It's just awful. So what goals can you share that you have for your next trip coming up? Anything that you're hoping to do that you can talk about, or?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's not enough to go one time. There are people, you can claim a lot of things when you go one time. I did a lot of claims when I went the first time, but then you have to put your own claims in check, right? I think it's the correct thing to do if you want to do a true journalistic work. You have to uphold the truth at all times. So I went there first time, as I told you before, and I went there the second time, and I went there the third time, and I want to keep going there, because the more people that you have the chance to talk to, the more you can sharpen your ideas or change them if needs be, right? So I want to know, I'm always interested in knowing the perception of the troops, because one thing is what we hear on the news, even on the Russian media, on the Western media, and the other thing is the perception on the ground itself, in the place itself where things are happening. This is very, very interesting, and unfortunately, a lot of the conversations I had with people, I cannot publish them because they ask me not to. I mean, we are in moments where we are eating shashlik, and we are having a couple of vodkas, and then they open up themselves and they tell a lot of stuff, and this is very, very inciting knowledge. But I have to protect their privacy, and I cannot. I cannot disclose a lot of things, but still, there's a lot of stuff that I've learned. For example, I've talked to prisoners of war, which is for me was a great, very, very also very intense experience. I talked to several of them. I've published some of these interviews, all captured in the KURSK region.
Wow.
Yeah, it was great. I had the chance to talk to soldiers and an officer, and all of these interviews. They were also published in wider, bigger Brazilian channels because they took interest on it. And I think these materials are great. Anyway, and I want to keep doing that. I want to keep going up the ranks, going closer to the contact line as possible. And delve into the society as much as I can, and always. Now I feel
challenged by you to go again. So.
Yeah, and I something I have to do, and of course I'm having a lot of trouble because of that. But personal stuff. But duty is duty.
Right. I see a funny comment here. Someone said, "Why is it so slow?" Stan is the handler, correct? And that's not the first comment I saw. You guys are so wrong. It's very funny. Stan is another vlogger. These guys have no idea what they're talking about.
No.
All right, cool. Well, then, lastly, what is your future plans for your life in general? What are you hoping to get out of this life? Because you are my age, basically. You know, we've got, maybe 30 years left if we're lucky. So you must be thinking about, what you want to do with what you have left. You have a couple of kids. You have a wife as well, I suppose.
I do. For the meantime, yes. No, I say it as a joke, of course, but we don't know the future. I do risk myself. I am aware that I risk myself. That I give a ton of worries here at home, and also there are some repercussions from this last trip on the account of having been on national TV. Of course, they on national TV. I was shown on a anti-Russian propaganda show in prime time, and they completely distorted shit, about me, and they even talked about Russell, and somehow accusing me of being somehow connected to the demise of Russell, and it's really crazy. But my you ask about my future. That's a very interesting question. I live like I am immortal. Well, let me explain to that. I live like I am. Of course, I'm not immortal, and I don't believe any of that. But I live like there's no. I keep going and making things up as I feel. I don't have that structured. I don't have that structured plan. I just need an income. And then the rest, I need freedom to acquire knowledge, keep acquiring knowledge, keep meeting people, keep knowing the world. And, for example, journalism has been something that I feel comfortable doing. And so I'll keep doing that. Wherever it takes me, I'll just keep doing it.
Well, I mean, I think that's a very good answer. Maybe I need to think more like that, So, because I'm always thinking, what am I going to do with the rest of this decade and that decade? And then how am I going to do this, and my kids, and how old are they, and all this stuff. And maybe you have it more correctly to just be a Christian and do your duty and move forward and take it.
Yeah, move forward. Keep moving. Don't mind the time what you have left. Just if you want to do it, do it. It's like, of course, according to your principles and values, always within that frame, but just keep doing it. I mean, I don't see any other way to live. I'm tired of restraints and most of restraints in my life, it's due from, I'm sorry to say this, but due from capitalism. The
How dare you, sir? I'm offended now. Let's argue.
The shekels, the only shekels I feel are the shekels imposed by capitalism.
All right. Yeah, well, I mean, I understand the criticism, but then, then you get into how are you going to make the world function and work, because we are humans and we need some sort of motivation to do things a certain way. But I'm sure you and I could go back and forth.
No. I'm not gonna argue that with you for obvious reasons. I mean, for the sake of your own program, of your own show.
That's right. That's my motivation. Awesome. All right, man. Well, it's been good having you on. I'm really glad I got to meet you here for the first time on the show. And who knows? Maybe we'll see each other one day somewhere in Russia.
I mean, hit me up in November. We might find a chance. I've been a couple of times there on, more than a couple of times. Mm-hmm. I've been once on Zvezda, and last time I was there, I was on this anti-fake in Pervi Canal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I also made a couple of stories with the material I got there, and they were shown in post after I was back in Portugal, about when I was in a town in Donbass called Vadiana, and the town has just been recently captured at that time. And we were like, you have 30 minutes to be here and then to do your pictures and your shit, and then we're out. It was like that.
Yeah.
And we saw a bunch of NATO material destroyed there.
Wow.
So maybe next time, because it's always a couple of days in Moscow. I mean, I start to feel guilty when I spend too much time in Moscow when I'm there. For example, I arrive there, I'm the first day there, and the second day I start to feel itchy. Let's move from Moscow. I want to go to the hot zones there. Moscow is good for when you have the sense of duty fulfilled, and then you return to Moscow and you have a couple of days more relaxed.
Moscow's nice. Yeah. Yeah. Christy, I see you commented you missed it and you can watch the rerun. Yeah, you guys can run it back right now if you want. You don't have to wait for anything. But guys, I have linked his channel in the title and in the description. And if you're watching me on his channel, I think he's probably done the same. So be sure, it's a dual live stream. Be sure and like and subscribe to both of our channels if you haven't done that already. Leave a comment. It helps us with the algorithm because we are both self-funded. And share. That's the most important thing. We both want to do good with our lives as Christians and help make the world a better place. And so we're trying to do that with our channels. So thank you so much for watching, everybody. Is there anything else you'd like to say? You want to say goodbye to the audience? Leave them with some inspiration?
No, I just want to say no matter how many YouTube channels you choose to, or if you choose to see only things that please your mind and please the ideas you already have, always be skeptical of those. Be skeptical of what you think every day. Put your ideas in check every day. And if possible, not everyone can do it, but if possible, go to places, see for yourself, talk to the real people on the ground, enlighten yourself like that, and keep the doubt in your top as something you always have with you, because that's very healthy. Dogma is not healthy. And if I took a side, because now I can say I took a side, like you, when I started my thing, I was a little bit in the middle as well. I remember first time I interviewed Russell, he was like, whoa, and he was a little bit a little bit to that side too much. But then when I met him and I lived through stuff, I understood him perfectly, and I have no problem in admitting my positions and defending my positions now. But keep them in check. This is my advice to you, and don't take my word for it. Don't. I tell my stories, I tell my experiences. This is from my own perception. Maybe if you go yourself to Russia and if you go yourself to Donbass, maybe you have your own perception, and that's very important to do. So talk to as many people as you can if you really want to know the truth, and make up your mind with all the information, but don't make up just based on beliefs or one or that opinion. That's
right.
it.
Well, dude, I'm really glad you came on. I'm really glad you said that, because sometimes I get comments from people, why'd you have this person on, or why'd you have that person on, because we don't agree on certain things. And I'm like, oh, please, I do not want to only have people on that I agree with on everything, and you and I agree on some things, we don't agree on some other things, and that is wonderful. We've got to talk to people and have an open mind, like you said, so I really appreciate it.
Oh, and I just want to give big thanks. I almost forgot, and this is big sin if I did this. Big thanks to Masha, Maria Lelyanova. She has been my, what can I say? I don't have a word to qualify her. She, since Russell's death, I was a bit lost, and I had to call someone that I knew there to help me get more contacts, to go to places. And because I had met her in my first trip, I thought, what the hell, I'm going to contact her. And she immediately helped me with everything. And she has been my translator. She has translated all my videos from all my interviews. She has been with me in the local, with the people, translating live these interviews so I can understand what people are telling me. And so huge thanks to her. Maria Lelyanova, she has a Telegram channel, and I will post it at least in my channel, I'll post it.
Yeah, we can both put it in the description.
Yeah.
It's a good idea.
Because she really deserves it. She does a wonderful job, and she's a top-notch translator. She's really great. She does real-time translation like no other, and she's a machine, definitely.
Yeah, I've met her a few
woman.
times, and she's got great energy and spirit, very kind person. And it's cool to hear that you've worked with her. And I saw her in one of your videos as well. So I'm glad you said that. All right, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Like I said, like, subscribe, share, and comment.
Bye, guys.
Bye.